Hey everyone, in today's video we're going to have a look at designers and their work. So this is a theory that's going to appear on paper 2, the hour-and-a-half long paper. It's also going to go hand in hand with design movements. The reason I put it into two separate videos and two separate lessons is there's quite a lot of content of like certain designers and certain design movements you need to know about. It just makes more sense to split them in half basically. So what you need to know basically, so if you've got the A-level textbook from page 23 to 27, um, the designers that are on here are the ones that are suggested by the spec that you need to know. There are loads and loads of others that you might have an opinion on. It's good for you to basically understand who they are and what their philosophy is and some examples of their work. But also, it's good for you to also form your own opinion on their work as well. Because obviously, when I do these videos, I don't do a very good job of hiding my opinion on certain things. But the same for you, like in your exam, you are allowed to voice your opinion about whether you think a design is good or not and why, as long as you can explain it. What you can't just say is, oh, it's crap. Why? Don't know. Don't like it. You need to be able to explain yourself in a way that sort of comes across in a more A-level-y way, for want of a better term. Okay, so the first one, Philippe Starck. So he is a French designer. He is still currently active. His most famous one is this thing here called the Alessi Lemon Squeezer. It is a very, very popular thing to appear on exam papers. They love to have it on there. It's what's kind of like an iconic design. It does have some flaws though. It's not actually, it's supposed to be a lemon squeezer. It's not actually very good at juicing a lemon. It's got a high centre of mass, basically all the weight is, where's the mass? All the weight is that sort of up here, so it's a little bit unstable. It's the right size for a lemon, but if you try and squeeze an orange, orange juice will sort of squeeze everywhere. It's pretty much considered basically more of like a display piece than like a functional piece. Um, but it does look very cool. Well, again, form your own opinion. But the idea being that what happens is you put your glass underneath the juicer and then you juice like put the lemon or the orange if you want to squeeze it everywhere, sort of like do that sort of swivelly bit on it and the juice will drip down and go into the cup. So with his designs in general, he likes being like quite playful with it, quite a bit like silly sometimes. He does experiment a lot with like modern materials and manufacturing processes. He's not afraid to try new things. There are some designers that sort of set in their ways. They must do it in a very what would the word be? A very traditional sort of way. He doesn't really do that. A lot of his work is considered like postmodern. So he's like I say, he likes to incorporate lots of new methods, new styles into what he does. So now he has this concept of like democratic design. So the idea being that he wants to make things that can be mass produced and sort of can be used by everyone. So yes, a lot of his pieces are quite expensive, but what he really like his whole thing like, nowadays particularly is he likes to make things not just for the very wealthy. He wants designs that can look nice, can look cool, but you can mass produce it. And if you can mass produce it, typically the prices will be less, so it can be used for sort of like the everyman sort of person. He's done loads and loads of work. He's been active for a huge amount of time. He's actually got quite a few talks on YouTube, which are very, very interesting. He's quite a very good public speaker, actually. So he set up in 1998 the Good Goods catalogue. It's basically had about 170 different sustainable and respectful everyday objects for the future moral markets. Okay, so yeah, so he had those 170 sustainable and respectful everyday life objects, and then he also came in the year 2000. He worked with Target stores in America to come up with like 50 exclusive and affordable products for, again, for like the everyman. So trying to sort of avoid the whole idea of like elitist, which is where this idea of like democratic design came from, because democratic meaning it's like for everyone. James Dyson. So probably one of England's most famous exports in terms of design and innovation. Sir James Dyson now, I do believe. Well, not now, he's been Sir for quite a while. But very, very popular. I would argue actually pretty much most people have probably got a Dyson product of some kind in their house. His most famous one originally is vacuum cleaners. That's kind of like his original breakthrough into what he did. But now he does a lot of domestic products generally. His most famous one was the DC01 vacuum cleaner. So the idea when it had the cyclone technology, so it was like bagless, quite innovative at the time. His looks, he likes to have it quite a like mechanical engineering sort of look, where it's all very grey. It kind of looks like mechanical moving parts, and he has accents of either a yellow or a pinky, like a hot pink sort of colour. Tends to be like his sort of aesthetic, which arguably look very, very nice. But nowadays you have a lot of things like the bladeless fans that you can get. The I'm not sure what the hairdryer would be called, but I guess it's sort of like a bladeless back hairdryer again, or the hair straighteners. So they are really literally are everyday products, and they all do work very, very well. So he has a good idea. His sort of philosophy is that good design is about how something works, not just how it looks. So everything that he does work very, very well, but then he has his own sort of very distinct look to it. Next, you got Margaret Calvert. So she's most famous as a graphic designer, and actually you will see her things on an everyday basis, and you probably haven't clocked onto it. But she is the graphic designer who's designed pretty much every single road sign in the UK. Not necessarily, yes, on like motorways, but also all the like traffic signs, roadwork signs, everything like that. The fonts, all of that is her work. So there's not a great deal to go over with Margaret Calvert, but she has been designing this for a huge amount of time, and she's considered quite a very influential graphic designer. Next, you've got Dieter Rams. Dieter Rams essentially is what's probably referred to as like the godfather of modern product design. So he's a German designer. I don't know if he's still alive, but I don't know if he's still active now, because he's definitely a little bit older at this point. He did a lot of work with Braun, the electric company. So he is what you consider like a functional or a product designer. He likes the idea of like simple is better. He doesn't like the idea of overcomplicated things. Very functional. Relies heavily on like technological developments about how things are made, how things work. He also came up with what is considered like the 10 principles for good design, and these come up in exam questions all the time. Okay, so these are that they must be innovative, so it must have something new going on about it. It must be useful, so it actually like serves a purpose. It's not just there to like look good. Aesthetics, so it has to look good. So it's not like he's just making things that work well that are like ugly. So he's making things that work well but look nice as well at the same time. Understandable. It's the idea being that you don't need a massive instruction booklet to look at it. You can just plug and go pretty much. It's simple to figure out how to make it work. Unobtrusive, so it doesn't like stick out like a sore thumb or that sort of thing. Honest, has longevity, so he's making things that are not going to break after a short amount of time. It's not going to be bad for the environment, that sort of thing. Authority to the last detail, so he has thought about everything that's there is serving a purpose. Environmentally friendly, I've talked about a little bit already, and there's little design as possible. So he likes the whole idea really of like less is better. Okay, he doesn't believe in over design. Some designers, and we'll come across some, not necessarily in this video, but in the design movements video we will do, where people design things for the sake of them looking pretty and silly, and it's down like the more arty side of things. Whereas Dieter Rams is very much the case of designs it will work well, and it's going to be simple and sleek. Almost like, and I think I'll start on the next slide actually, is if you take like Apple, as much as it pains me to say nice things about Apple, as we all know, Apple is a very simplistic design, but actually they work very, like Macs generally all work very, very well. So in terms of his legacy of what like After Effects he's had on the design world, it's been massive. So basically Apple, again, talking nice about them, I'm not entirely happy about it. So Apple's apps, so when certain things in the apps actually replicate, like in the calculator, what it looks like compared to something that he designed in the past as well. The operating system for the clock, again, kind of mimics the sort of clock and watch designs that he's done in the past. And he has in the past, in a documentary in 2009, said Apple are one of the few companies designing products according to his principles. So the whole idea of those 10 principles of good design. So he believes Apple are sort of meeting those. Now, arguably, a couple maybe less so than others. So things like environmentally friendly, maybe not. But certainly things like innovative, aesthetic, as little design as possible. Those are certainly words you could say to describe Apple. So again, I'm trying not to put too much of my own personal like design opinion into it. But Dieter Rams, he is an absolutely iconic designer, and his I keep getting struck on words here. Legacy, his legacy is forever. It's going to be there forever in terms of having a nice, simple design that just works very, very well. Charles and Ray Eames, who are a married couple, or they were married couples, they are no longer with us. So they have done all sorts of different things in their design life. So they're most famous for molded furniture. So they like to do molded plywood. As you see here, it's a beautiful look. Essentially, they'll do loads of like really crazy sort of bent shapes out of plywood. Their most famous thing is called the Ohms Lounger. They have done bits of architecture as well that has the same sort of aesthetic to it as well. They have done everyday sort of products, but their most famous things in the end, towards the end, it was all about furniture that their most famous thing is for. And they did actually, during World War II, they designed stretchers and splints to help get injured soldiers out of war zones, and they actually saved a huge amount of lives. And also, with that innovation, they have helped um, develop things like biometric, like certain like access accessories being the right word to sort of like help soldiers in modern day war zones. One thing to point out as well is they examples do like to use arms loungers for maths questions because you can calculate like how much plywood you need for a certain shape and that sort of thing. They are beautiful pieces of furniture. They are incredibly expensive to get originals because obviously then not that many left anymore. Marianne Brandt. So she is a German designer. So she's actually a painter, sculptor, photographer, metalsmith, designer. She's got all sorts of things going on. So she studied at Bauhaus. Now we will go over Bauhaus in the next video on design movements. So Bauhaus is a German design, or was, sorry, a German design school, like 1920s, 1940s sort of thing. So they like to do a lot of things, chrome, metal work. They like the geometric patterns. So it was all like chromes and blacks, really. So like if you're making like a chair, it would be like a chrome frame and then like black cushion seat on it and that sort of thing. All geometric patterns, nothing like crazy sharp edges, that sort of thing. And she was one of the most famous designers to come out of Bauhaus. Most of her Marianne Brandt's things were everyday items, particularly like kitchen appliances. She's done things like lamps, ashtrays, arguably not really that much of an everyday item anymore with vaping and people not smoking as much. Teapots, that sort of thing. Her most famous work is the geometric pure kitchen products that you see here, which actually now you can actually see them in Tesco's. Obviously not, they're not originals, but you can buy like replicas of those in Tesco's as of now, and it's what, February 2022. So that is the end of the designers you actually need to know. So, like I said, there's not a huge amount of them. So there is just Philippe Starck, James Dyson, Margaret Calvert, Dieter Rams, Charles Reyes Erms, and Marianne Brandt. Of those, the three most common to come up in your exams: Philippe Starck, because they love the lemon squeezer. Two is James Dyson, because he's British and an absolute iconic designer as well. And then Dieter Rams, because as I said, he is the godfather of product design and he has such a long-lasting effect on the design world. So what I would like you to have a go at doing now is for each of the designers that I've shown you, can you pick one whose work most interests you? Okay. Then can you look into any other pieces of work they've created and come up with a design of an everyday product in their style? So it doesn't matter what it is, but can you just pick any of those for people that you like, look at their style, and then an everyday item. So it could be a piece of furniture, it could be a household appliance, it could be like lighting, and then just design it in their particular style. Once you've done that, if you could model and render it in Fusion 360 and then send it to me, that would be perfect. So that is the end of designers and their work. If you've got any questions, please let me know and I will get back to you.